Welcome back. In this lecture, we'll provide a brief introduction to AWS CodeCommit and how it can be used to manage your source code. We'll show you where AWS CodeCommit sits in a CI/CD setup. This lecture will familiarize yourself with the AWS CodeCommit service and ensure you know where and when to use it within your own software projects. Okay, let's begin. AWS CodeCommit is a fully managed source control service. AWS CodeCommit can be used to host your own private Git repositories in a fully secured environment managed by AWS. AWS CodeCommit is an extremely simple service designed with all the features you come to expect from a Git-based source control system. For starters, AWS CodeCommit supports all familiar Git commands, ensuring that you can use any existing Git client tools and/or commands entered from the command line or terminal. AWS CodeCommit supports typical Git operations such as clone, pull, push, and fetch. AWS CodeCommit acts as the source control system for your software projects. It is the service into which you commit your code changes. In essence, AWS CodeCommit is the starting component within a CI/CD setup. Any commits into AWS CodeCommit trigger downstream activity within your CI/CD setup, such as kicking off a new build of your source code. The steps to set up a new Git repository within AWS CodeCommit are simple and effortless. You can have your own Git repository available within minutes. The first and really only significant requirement is to give your new repository a name. To complete the new repository setup, you have the option of configuring email notifications for particular events. This configuration is completed through the use of a CloudWatch event rule. AWS CodeCommit provides several integration options. Using any combination of the following allows you to extend and customize your source code workflow. Repository triggers. Within a repository, you can register repository triggers to trigger actions, for example, sending a message to an SNS topic or to a Lambda function. CodeCommit CloudWatch events. CodeCommit integrates with CloudWatch events. This allows you to create event-driven workflows that trigger off particular events that occur within your CodeCommit repository. For example, pipelines created within CodePipeline can be triggered to execute when a commit takes place within your repository. There are two connection options available to you when attempting to connect to your AWS CodeCommit hosted Git repositories. The first option is to do so over the standard HTTPS protocol using port 443. This is useful when working behind corporate firewalls that may block other types of outbound traffic. The second option is to do so over the SSH protocol using port 22. Regardless of chosen connection type, both protocols ensure that all source code transferred to and from the repository is encrypted for security. Authenticated access into a CodeCommit repository is managed through the use of an IAM user account. Depending on the connection type, HTTPS or SSH, you'll need to either generate HTTPS Git credentials or upload an SSH public key respectively on the IAM user account in question. An HTTPS Git credential is nothing more than an auto-generated username and password combination. Most, if not all, Git client tools will support either or both of these authentication methods. Additionally, IAM policies can be used to provide fine-grained identity-based access to known repositories by name. For example, an IAM user who has the following attached policy will be allowed to perform equivalent git pull and push commands on the two repositories named Cloud Academy Repo 1 and Cloud Academy Repo 2. Okay, that completes this introduction lecture on the AWS CodeCommit service. Go ahead and close this lecture, and we'll see you shortly in the next one. In this demonstration, we're going to use AWS CodeCommit to create a new Git repository. So the first thing we do is we click on the Create Repository button. This will take us to the next screen. Here we give it a repository name. In this case, we'll call our new repository AWS DevTools repo. And for description, we'll simply say repository for demo. We then click on the Create Repository button, and straight away we have our repository created. We now have the option to set up an SNS topic in which we can then create subscriptions to get email notifications when certain events take place. Here you can see the subscriptions that have been confirmed and unconfirmed. Clicking the Manage Subscriptions link, I'll add in my email address, jeremy.cook@cloudacademy.com. This will send me an email to my account asking me to confirm this subscription. For now, I'll just close that, and in the background I'll confirm that by going to my email. Next, we get the opportunity to be given some instructions as to how we clone our repository. What I'll do here is I'll copy the git clone command, and then I'll jump into my terminal. In my terminal, I paste the git clone URL, which will use HTTPS to access and clone the repository. Now, as expected, this doesn't work straight away, and we can see that we've got a 403, which indicates a permissions problem. So we'll jump back into IAM and we'll set up our CodeCommit user who doesn't have any policies currently attached. So we'll attach one now. And the policy that we'll attach will be called CodeCommit full access. So we'll just give it full access to CodeCommit. So we're going to attach this policy to the CodeCommit user. Okay, that's now attached. Okay, clicking on Security Credentials, scrolling down, you'll see we have no access keys associated with this user. So we'll jump back into the terminal and rerun the command just to confirm that we should still get an error, even though we've attached the policy. So again, as expected, we get the 403. So let's fix this up. We'll jump back into IAM, and this time we'll create an access key. We'll take the access key and the secret key, and we'll configure these back within our terminal. Jumping back into the terminal, we'll update our credentials file, and then we'll rerun the clone command. And this time, we've had success, although we've been given a warning to say that our cloned repository is empty. So now we can jump into the AWS DevTools repo directory and see that indeed we have a Git repository as per the .git folder. Let's take a quick look at the git config file stored in our home directory. Here we can see how we've got a credential helper set up, which talks out to the AWS CLI using the CA CodeCommit profile that we've configured in our AWS config file. Next, we'll go ahead and populate our empty Git folder that we cloned. We'll do a recursive copy from an existing folder that I have on my desktop, which currently contains the static web assets for our web portal. This is the HTML, JavaScript, and CSS files, and a build spec file. Okay, let's copying the build spec file now. Let's now list the contents of the directory. We can see we have our app folder and our build spec.yaml file. Performing a git status, we can see that we now need to add these to our next commit. So running the command git add, and we'll just do everything Now do another git status to see what we've got. And we see that we've added everything, so that looks good. We'll now do a git commit, and we'll give it a message. Initial commit of files, enter, and that creates our commit. But we still haven't pushed this into our new repository. So the final thing we need to do is do a git push, which we'll do now. This pushes the commit up to CodeCommit. We can see the progress as it's happening. Okay, so that's being pushed up into our repository. If we do a reload on within AWS CodeCommit, we now see our new files and folders have been successfully committed into our repository. We can navigate through the folder system. The next thing I'll demonstrate is how to set up a desktop tool to do the code management. In my case, I use GitHub Desktop. The particular version I'm using is 1.1.1, and what I need to do here is to add a local repository. So clicking on Add Local Repository, we navigate to the folder that we cloned out of our CodeCommit repository. We add it, and here you can see the name of it. Now, if I click on Fetch from Origin, I would expect this to fail, as the desktop tool can't utilize the AWS CLI mechanism. So what we have to do here is we have to jump back into IAM and set up or generate HTTPS Git credentials. So we'll do that, and then we'll paste in the username, copy the password, and paste the password in. Clicking the Save and Retry button, we now see that we're fetching again from the origin, and this time we shouldn't get any errors. Excellent. So that's worked. That's confirmed that we're now authenticating using HTTPS Git credentials. So what I'll do now is I'll jump back into the terminal and I'll fire up Visual Code from within the root directory, and we'll make a quick edit to the build spec file. So clicking on the build spec file, I'm going to delete one of the commands under the install phase, and we'll save this file. We'll go back to the terminal, we'll do a git status, and we can see that we've got one modified file. And I'll jump back into my GitHub desktop tool. I can see that's also detected the change. We'll give it a message for the commit, minor update, clicking the commit to master button, and then finally pushing it back to origin. And we get an update, and that's completed. So again, everything's in sync. So if I do a git status again from the terminal, again I get a message to say we're all up to date. Heading back to CodeCommit, we'll now click on the commits link, and we'll see our new commit. So here, minor update. We can click on the commit ID, and CodeCommit will give us this tool that shows us the actual changes made within the file, which is really convenient. One final thing, we'll take a look at settings, notifications, and here we can see we've got one confirmed subscription to our SNS topic. So in the background, I went to my Gmail account and clicked on the confirmation link. Okay, that concludes the CodeCommit demonstration. As you can see, it's a very simple service to work with.